Imagine the specifications for a heavy-duty mechanical pump. It must run continuously, every single second, for 80 years. No maintenance, no replacement. To reach that 80-year lifespan, this machine has to execute over 2.5 billion individual pumping cycles. There is a zero-tolerance policy for downtime. If the mechanism pauses for even a few seconds, the entire system it supports fails. The payload complicates the physics further. This pump isn't moving a simple, low-friction liquid like water. It has to move a thick, highly viscous and adhesive fluid. That fluid is pushed through an incredibly vast distribution network. If you laid out the blood vessels of an adult end to end, the piping would stretch for 60,000 miles, enough to wrap around the Earth twice. Forcing fluid through that much narrow-gauge tubing creates immense friction. The primary obstacle is overcoming this continuous peripheral resistance to keep the fluid moving. To survive that resistance, the pump must maintain a constant output, ejecting an average of 5.25 liters of fluid every minute. To meet these parameters, biological evolution produced a dual-chambered displacement system that exceeds the reliability of our most advanced industrial pumps. Fluid dynamics is the subdiscipline of mechanics governing how liquids flow and react to force. The human heart is the ultimate mechanical solution to those dynamics. Its core architecture splits the load between two highly specialized side-by-side displacement chambers. Deoxygenated fluid enters the receiving chamber on the top right. The right side of the pump operates as a low-pressure routing system. It only needs enough force to push this fluid to the lungs. There, it exchanges carbon dioxide for oxygen and returns fully oxygenated to the left side. This left side is the high-pressure system. It is built with significantly thicker muscle walls to handle systemic ejection, forcing oxygenated fluid out to the rest of the body. It blasts this fluid into the aorta, the primary high-pressure manifold feeding the entire 60,000-mile network. Mapping these distinct, segregated plumbing routes challenged anatomists for centuries. Early structural analysis, like this manuscript from Leonardo da Vinci, shows the effort required to understand how these vessels isolate the two pressure systems. That isolation is vital. If the physical barrier between the high and low pressure systems ruptures, causing them to mix, the engine loses its pressure gradient and stalls. But a flawlessly sealed plumbing architecture is useless without a perfectly timed power grid to fire the pistons in the correct sequence. A machine this critical cannot rely on centralized software to dictate every single cycle. The communication lag from a remote brain would be too slow. The heart does not wait for neurological commands to beat. It runs on an autonomous, integrated electrical grid embedded directly into the muscle. The power originates at the sinoatrial node. This specialized cluster of pacemaker cells acts as the primary spark plug. The node generates an action potential through chemistry, triggering a spontaneous exchange of sodium and calcium ions across cellular membranes until the cell fires. Early researchers went to extreme lengths to measure this current, submerging patients' limbs in saline-filled buckets connected to massive string galvanometers. Detecting that voltage proved that the heart is an electromechanical device reacting to a precise internal electrical stimulus. Generating its own independent electrical spark ensures that the heart continues to operate even if the central nervous system fails. Once the sinoatrial node fires, the electrical current travels away from the upper chambers and down through specialized wiring called the Purkinje fibers. These fibers carry the signal directly to the ventricles, the heavily muscled lower discharging chambers of the pump. Notice the built-in timing delay. The electrical signal bypasses the top chambers and travels down the center so it strikes the apex, the very bottom, first. This creates a specific mechanical result, a synchronized rippling muscular contraction that initiates at the base and rolls upward. This brings the process back to the rules of fluid dynamics. Since the primary exit pipe, the aorta, is located at the top of the chamber, ejecting the fluid efficiently requires a bottom-up squeeze. If the muscle contracted from the top down, it would trap fluid against the sealed bottom of the ventricle, causing massive back pressure and pump failure. This synchronized squeeze maximizes ejection force, but it also places repetitive, extreme stress on the physical material of the pump itself. In any machine with moving parts, the ultimate failure point is material fatigue. Parts eventually wear down, grind, and snap. This presents a biological paradox. The muscles in your arms fail and lock up after just a few minutes of heavy work, yet the muscle of the heart never stops. Mechanical fatigue in skeletal muscle occurs because it frequently burns energy anaerobically, without oxygen, during intense strain. Anaerobic metabolism is an inefficient way to produce energy. It generates lactic acid waste that physically chokes the tissue and inhibits further contraction. The walls of the heart are formed by the myocardium, a specialized involuntary tissue that operates under a different set of chemical rules. Unlike skeletal muscle, the myocardium operates in a continuous, synchronized state for decades without locking up. To avoid the toxic fatigue that destroys skeletal muscle, the myocardium maintains a constant aerobic state, preventing the chemical imbalances that lead to mechanical failure. To see how it achieves this, we have to look past the macromechanics of the pump and examine the microscopic architecture of the ventricular wall. Every cell contains mitochondria, microscopic organelles that serve as chemical powerhouses, generating the energy required for contraction. This is where the myocardium deviates from all other tissue. These mitochondria occupy nearly 35% of the cell's volume, a density unseen in standard skeletal muscle. This extreme engine density means the heart is incredibly power-hungry, relying on a constant supply of oxygen delivered through coronary circulation. The myocardium uses this oxygen to burn energy completely cleanly through aerobic respiration. Because it operates strictly through this aerobic process, the cellular engines never accumulate the toxic byproducts that cause other muscles to tire. The heart is the ultimate perpetual engine, a self-wiring, dual-displacement pump